Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. If you love these tales of nuclear revenge, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by NoCheetah1486, How I Made My Landlord and Neighbor Pay Over $14,000 in Fines for Harassing Me. First of all, before I start, I'm about 80% these two are involved with each other in a romantic way, but I can't confirm. Now, I'm not an expert writer, nor am I going to spend an extended, keyword extended, period of time making sure everything is perfect. I did it once or twice over, but there's just so much and I'm still a little frazzled by the situation. I've had difficulty putting my thoughts on paper since elementary. This doesn't mean I won't do my best. I'm sure there's run-on sentences and improper spelling. I don't think it's a prerequisite for sharing your experience. So I travel a lot, and I live in an RV mostly full-time. I've stayed at the same park, however, for the last 9 months. I've had issues there. They've called the police on me for arguing, not joking. They'll ignore me in the office. All because there was a small mistake on the paperwork when I stayed here on an overnight 9 months ago. Something happened and they tried to use that to kick me out. However, the owner said it didn't matter and all info is pulled from the registration. So blaming the paperwork for being off by 1 year on the RV as a cause for eviction was far-fetched. There were a few other incidents, but I just figured it's cheap here and I can pay my rent over the phone. Who cares? And don't really plan on going anywhere, as where I am, all the parks are full for snowbird season, plus I got a new job here. Anyways, we had a neighbor who was miserable. We could tell from day one. We also have 2 cats. They hang out on our porch mostly all the time. Occasionally they stray, but they're older and don't go far. So around 6 weeks ago, after 9 months of being my neighbor and never saying a word, he started acting very erratic. Randomly approached my wife as she was washing the car outside and got in her face and started screaming, saying that he dug cat poop out of the dirt behind his 1979 bus on bricks, and now he was going to put traps out and poison. Somehow, management had heard the commotion, or he had told them to come, but they pulled up and quickly pulled him to the side to talk to him privately, refusing to even listen to us. We were very weirded out, calling him baby, sweetheart, etc. So they said, it's his space, he can trap all he wants. If your animals are going onto his property, then that's your fault. Now this park is known to have so many cats, they keep feeders by the front office. I warned them what they were doing was illegal, but they said, we've been doing this a long time, we know exactly what we're doing. Call animal control if you don't believe me. I said okay, but he threatened to poison them. So I'm making a police report in case anything happens. I want him to be on record as having threatened them. They came and took the report, and oh man did that make him mad. Still at this point, I hadn't figured out how to get my revenge. Animal control said it was legal and didn't do anything. We immediately got the cats microchipped and went to Lowe's to buy cat traps to teach our cats what a trap is and how to not go into one. Easiest trick I've ever taught an animal. Took 1 try, now they're terrified of anything resembling a trap. We were stumped. The cats were going stir crazy. Then 5 days later, she leaves a letter on my door. A self-help eviction, saying I have no choice but to leave immediately, and she was turning off the power on X day. I told her if she did that, I would call the local police, as that's a self-help eviction. And you've already demonstrated malice by calling the police on me for asking you a question you don't like, as well as assisting in the trapping of my cats while encouraging other cats to stay, self-help evicting, and at one point, she refused my CDC declaration letter, and I have all these things recorded on video. On top of all this, she says he needs to start his Harley and let it run for 45 minutes to warm up, even if he's not riding. That's what Harleys need. 2 feet from my bedroom window when he knows I work nights and I'm asleep, essentially trying to force me out. Saying my dummy camera isn't allowed, however his real camera pointed at my space is. I was very prepared for an eviction threat, as these guys get away with so much, being that they can threaten eviction and people will just roll out on their RVs. Not me. No, not me. After the manager finally spoke to the owner, she realized she had dug herself into a hole, and now couldn't evict me unless I hadn't paid rent, as they had refused to show me a contract or any rules the entire time I've been here. They don't like to have written rules, so they can change them as they need. The manager told me I was never allowed into the office unless to get mail, and I must pay rent over the phone with a card. Still though, I wasn't comfortable because my neighbor had now put out around 4 different traps. Some as close as 1 foot from my property line. He still hadn't caught anything, so by chance I ran into a property manager while out shopping for my own trap, and he told me some interesting things. I did a little research and found out that trapping in Nevada is illegal without a permit. Too many protected species. So I knew the cats would never go into a trap. We did about 5 sessions with them, where when they even saw the trap, they'd just hide. So I told the landlord, it's fine, he can keep the traps. I had heard from a neighbor that he saw the manager opening up the storage room and loading his truck with animal traps. But he didn't know about our situation, so he was confused. This is when I put my plan together. I knew the longer he saw he wasn't getting his way, the more traps he would put out, and the more erratic he would become. He started revving his Harley for 45 minutes, about 3 times a day while sitting inside with the radio on blasting. Then he'd get a chop saw and cut lumber into as small of pieces as he could, and then stand 10 feet back and launch them into a steel trailer. I had around 2 GB of video from my cell phone, so I only actually caught about half of it. I knew he was losing it. I put a dummy camera facing his front door, and that's what did it. He got too close and pushed my wife on camera. I had successfully driven him nuts and had what I needed for a civil harassment suit, and I just let him stew. Every few days I'd notice a new trap. Finally, when he got up to 14 traps, his tiny RV space looked like a landmine of cat traps. My cats were and probably are still traumatized from the sight. My next move was to call the Nevada Fish and Wildlife. I emailed the pictures of the traps. They finally showed up today and found his 14 traps. The fine is $1,000 per trap. These people are also cops that don't get to ever bust anyone, so they took it very seriously. They took his 14 traps and hit the park with $14,000 in fines. Afterwards, she called me asking me why I would do that. I informed her I'm not done and that I'm building a case on her and her little friend for harassment. I've since been moved to one of the best spots on the property near the $1 million RVs, next to the pool and hot tub with a bar and pizza, about a 200-foot walk. And yes, I begged for a new spot to end this from day one, but she said, we're booked up full all winter, we won't even have one spot until after Christmas. Let me ask you guys, considering everything that went on here and how the landlord was willing to ignore all of this stuff, right up until you were about to bust them, with them finally moving you to the $1 million RV section for free, getting you away from that awful neighbor, and basically set you in the lap of luxury, be enough to make you not go forward with that harassment case? Let me know in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by What's My Name 83. Ex-almost mother-in-law fired me unrightfully, so I destroyed her company. I decided to share my story. It all takes place 17 years ago, but I feel like it belongs here. At that time, I was 20 years old and dated my first true love. We had been together for 1.5 years, and everything was just great. Her mother really liked me, and she had her own company which traded fashion clothes for kids. She made tons of money. They needed someone to drive one of their 3.5-ton trucks, and she came up with an idea to hire me because I was unhappy with the job I had. So as a win-win situation, I accepted her offer and we started working together. Job was okay, even though I had to work a huge amount of overtime because she thoroughly introduced me to how the whole company worked. She had a huge storage facility, a store, and 2 trucks, one that I drove and a big one. I worked for her for like 1 year, and in that time, I knew every single thing about the company because she trusted me with also the dirty secrets. This later came in handy. This is where things took a huge turn. I find out that my girlfriend cheated on me with her ex, and as a result, I broke up with her instantly. It was an ugly situation, and after it went down, I called her mother and told her what was going on, and that I don't want to mix things with business, so I'll still be there for work, even though I don't want to see her daughter again. She said everything's alright, but of course she sided with her daughter, and I felt that she's mad at me because of the breakup. I went to work and acted as a professional should, took all the drama aside. However, soon after, she singled me out and started looking for mistakes so she can discipline me. This had been going on for months, and I realized she was just waiting for an excuse to fire me, but I wasn't going to give that reason to her easily. She was pissed that she couldn't find big mistakes, and the small ones she often just made up was not enough to terminate me, so she came up with a plan. On the truck, we had a power generator which provided a light and a power for laptops, printers, and so on. It worked in two ways, with fuel when we were on the road, and with cable in case we were at the storage. But it wasn't made by a company, they just hired an electrician for that, and he made an error. So we had to flip a switch all the time if we used it with a cable connection, otherwise it would burn down. As I loaded the truck, she convinced a coworker to flip the switch back, and after a few minutes the lights were gone and I noticed something's wrong. It burned out of course, but I knew I didn't forget the switch because I loaded the truck for an hour and it took only 5 minutes tops to burn out, so it couldn't be me. She didn't even hear me out, started yelling, fired me on the spot, and stated that she's gonna pay the repairs out of my last salary, so don't expect any money from her. I didn't take that lightly and told her, "I don't think you want to go this way with me," but she refused to listen. It took a few days for me to cool down, but I wanted to give her a last chance. I called her and told her even though I know what was going on and she did set me up, if I get my money, I'll call it an end and we don't have to see each other again. She told me to freak off, so I came up with a plan. First, because I knew the store she had didn't have a bathroom, which was illegal in my country, the shop assistants had an agreement with a restaurant on the opposite side to go there if they needed. I reported this to the authorities, and the next day they closed the shop because of this violation and told her she can't open up until they have a bathroom. She called me right away and asked if I had anything to do with this. I laughed and told her, "Didn't I tell you that you don't want to go this way with me?" and hung up. I knew that we worked so much overtime that me and the other truck driver had so much overtime on the Tacho cards. It records how many hours you drive and how fast and when you stopped. So I called authorities again and told them everything. They went and checked all the records and gave the company a brutal fine. She sent me obscene text messages all day long after that. I replied, "Ain't done yet." Then silence. A few hours went by and my phone rang. She called and asked me if we can talk it over. She even said she'd send me my last paycheck, but I shut her down immediately and told her, "Too late for that." And I called the fire department and told them that the wires they had in the walls of the store were outdated, which caused short circuits daily, and that they only have 2 fire extinguishers for the whole place, when they should have like 12 to 15. On that very day, they had to close the storage as well. So she lost the last place where she could make money for months until they get everything up to date and renew all the wires, which costs a huge amount of money. Because of the fines she got from the different authorities, she couldn't afford these renovations, of course. A few months later, she filed for bankruptcy. I know because my ex-girlfriend called me with, "I hope you're happy, jerk. You made my family bankrupt." I never got my paycheck, but at that point, I didn't even care anymore. I was happy with the outcome. Update: so after a few months, the tax department, or as some of you know it, IRS, took almost everything from her. Store, stuff, storage, trucks, the whole 9 yards. She got so many fines from different authorities, she couldn't pay it. So after everything was gone, she sold her house, moved to a smaller apartment, and never owned a business again. As far as I know, she works in a store as a clerk. Things aren't looking good. My ex-girlfriend, well, she married the next guy and now they have 4 kids. After the second child, she really let herself go. And now I'm happy I didn't have a child from her. I'm not gonna fat shame her, but dang. At least they're still together, so maybe she learned a lesson and didn't cheat on him. Or so I hope. About me, I had a long relationship after her. My son was born, but she was a lazy gold digger, so after 5 years we separated. I've met the love of my life after that, and almost 9 years later, we're still happy together. She also got out of a terrible relationship, so she truly appreciates me, and vice versa. I love her to death. I was gonna say something like, it would probably be good if they're gonna be that underhanded to also just make sure that they don't have any other baggage that's just so apparent that can sink them. But then I realized somebody that's gonna be underhanded like that is going to skimp out in many other areas too. So really, I feel like it was just inevitable and it was good karma coming back to them. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of both of these stories, which one was your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.